Hey, it's Kevin from Kin Plus, back again. This is day 2 of the 2-day easy strength routine that you can apply to anything you're doing. It's really well balanced, and you'll see that today. So we got a little bit of everything, a little different from day 1. I'm going to go through some of the other pillars that I have in the program. The next one being kind of the take it anywhere, you don't need anything. It's called the Myrtle. Based on Coach Jay Johnson, formerly of Nike. Very popular in the running community, but I think great overall hip activation, midsection activation. So we'll start the routine with some hydrants. So I'm going to pee on the hydrant. We'll just do 5 of each, but you could do 10 of each. Okay, so I'll do my 5. And I like getting a nice athletic tempo there, maximizing how open you get. Good, right into now a donkey kick. So I'm keeping my knee bent. I'm hooking the foot, opening up the hip, smooth through. Okay, try not to arch your back. You want to keep a stable pelvis on this. Okay, and then we go again. Nice. Now into hip circles, just like in day 1, but now we're on the ground. Trace the circle. Sometimes we call these hurdlers. Okay, so I have the pencil on my kneecap, and I'm drawing a nice elliptical on the side, then reverse it. Good, and then we go to the other side. Then we go in reverse. Okay, try to draw those circles, scour the hip. Next, we're going to do a donkey whip. I just call it a whip. We're going to kick back, rotate, swing my leg across as I sink my hips back in the opposite direction. That helps me get leverage so I can keep that foot level to the ground. Switch sides, kick, rotate. Just doing 5. You'll find on that one, you'll feel that in the hip quite a bit as you fight to keep that leg up. Last one I like to add in here, it's not part of the core original Myrtle routine, but I like adding some upper back mobility. We're going to add I call it a T-mob, thoracic mobilization, hand on the head, rotate the elbow down, open it up. Okay, so I'm not bending the elbow towards the hand. The whole torso, an extension of my elbow, is rotating down. Switch. Rotate down. You might even feel some clunks and creaks. That's it. That's the Myrtle. You can add on to that. There's lots of other things we can insert into that module, but that's the basic. Let's move on. Next little routine. Combination of the best stretch ever with a little bit of my own making. So I like calling this the Kin Plus flow. So it's the best stretch ever combined with a little something at the beginning and end. So we'll do the full flow here. I'll keep the mat nearby. You don't need the mat, but these knees. So I'm going to start kneeling. Okay, I'm going to plank. Okay, and we're going to just do 1 on each side. You could go 2 and hold for longer. I like going 3 counts on this. So I'm going to go knee to chest. I'm floating that leg. I'm holding it. 3, 2, 1. Downward dog, 3-legged. Kick that leg long. I don't like to open the hip on this. Keep it stacked. Get the butt cheek involved. Then take a big step up. Beside that right hand, a lot of people want to rush this, but gather your bearings, kind of take notes. Get that rear leg, my left leg in this case, glute involved. Boom, I feel a nice stretch in the hip flexor. I can even rotate that out a little bit to open the hip. Now I feel a stretch on that right leg. Hang there. Breathe through it. Take my right hand, rotate. Now we get a little upper back mobilization. Turn the wrist out and look up. You can add some circles here. 3, 3. Take that hand, put that on your left shoulder. Reach the elbow to the ground. Put the hand down. Drop the left knee. Right into a hip flexor stretch. Roll the hip underneath you. Now with this stretch, one of the most done wrong stretches, that didn't come out right, but not done very well. Okay, don't crank on this forward. Roll your pelvis into neutral first. Stand tall, and I guarantee you'll feel a stretch there without even moving forward. You can add a little rotation to it. Ooh, right down that line. Nice. Now we go hands down. Back into the plank. Other side, left knee to chest, go 3, 2, 1. Kick back, 3-legged, get the cheeks involved. Big step. Trail leg, get that right glute involved now to roll the hip into neutral. You can put your elbow into that leg, get it out. Take the left hand, maybe a couple more breaths here. This side doesn't feel as bad for me. Open it up. Circle, circle. Take that left hand on the right shoulder, elbow to the ground. Okay? Some yogis can get real way down there, not me. Hand to the ground, drop the knee. In this half kneeling stance, roll the hip neutral, boom, I feel a stretch right away. Okay, so a neutral pelvis. Okay, if you feel a stretch there, that tells you you got some tight hip flexors for sure. And then we'll lean over to the side. And I feel that whole chain now up through, past the hip flexor into the, a little bit oblique, a little bit abdominal. Good, break it down. Okay, so from there, we stand up. We're gonna do one more pillar. I like to choose 3 typically. That way you have a little bit of creativity and some direction in your warm-ups. You can go by feel, and you'll eventually find ones that you like a little more than others, maybe some strengths and weaknesses there, but keep it balanced. This is called the med ball series, okay? It's gonna be some walking with the med ball, baking in some coordination as we go, a little bit of midsection work. If you were to expand this out by itself, it could actually be a very effective med ball routine, but I like using it as a warm-up, so we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Activating and coordinating. Okay? It primes you for the workout you're about to do. We're gonna start with a tall sway. So I'm swaying as I walk, really tall and long. Again, here you could go 10 reps and walk backwards, or if you have a defined distance, like here, there's a bench in front of me, I can't go much further. So they're back, swaying overhead, long, coordinating the chain. Next, we're gonna go hip to hip, over the top as I coordinate the walk, nice and long, bracing, rotating, and reaching. That's what your core does. And back. It's the backwards walking. I know a lot of us don't do that every day, but very effective at creating new pathways, stimulating. Next, we'll do a tight chop. So it's tight around the body. You're almost going 180 degrees. If you get dizzy, just keep your eyes forward. Good, and then back. Coordinate it. Awesome. One last one we'll do. I'll call it the kayak, the crisscross, whatever you want to, the infinity sign. I'm going to cross in front. I'm kayaking here as I walk. Good. And then we go backwards with it. This one's difficult to coordinate. If I look smooth, it's because it's practice. Okay? And that's something common you'll see is that you may not be very good at these things because they're very skill and coordination and balance dependent. But the cool thing is we can improve those fairly quickly. Okay? And they can be a limiting factor in a lot of other movement problems. So that's why it's not sexy, but it's often overlooked. The next thing I'd like to do with the med ball, I'm stationary. Turn on an angle here so you can see me maybe a little better. We're gonna do big circles. So I'm drawing a nice big circle. I'm scooping around. Go 5 in one direction. Roll those hips forward at the top. Boom, push them forward. Reverse it. Excellent, that's about 5. Okay, from there we'll do a little squat. Touch the ground if you can. Over your head. Do 5. Good, and then we'll do a swing. You're not really violent with this, but just make the shape. Hinge. If you're finding the swing is difficult, this is a good little exercise just to kind of work the range. Push through with a light med ball. I'm using 5 pounds here. It doesn't have to be heavy. Okay, it looks big here. There's only 5 pounds in there. Next thing we're going to do, it's called a hip lock. Okay, really good for single leg balance. If you're a runner, very, very good. We want to be strong in this shape as a runner. Okay, it's mid stance. That's where most of the force is through the gait cycle. So we're going to drive the knee, hip lock. So balance might be the limiting factor here. Thigh parallel to the ground, chest, overhead press. Okay, you could go 5 to 10 of these, but you're gonna feel that stance leg getting some work in the butt cheek through the midsection. Okay, you'll see, cool thing about these exercises, you'll see the relationship between your midsection, the hip girdle, we call it. Okay, your core is neck to knees, not just right here. Let's do the other side now. I did more than 5 there, but we'll go 5 to 10. And you'll often find one side a little different than the other here. It's pretty common. Excellent. That's the med ball series. There's others that I'll add to it here and there, but that's the base. Okay, now we're ready to work out. Once again, as in day 1, I have a foundational core series inspired by McGill's Big 3 kind of core exercises, and I add 2 more. You could do that now, or you could do it at the end of the workout, or you could do it on maybe an off day or in and around your other activities. So we get a micro dose kind of every day. Sometimes if you're short on time, that's probably a 5 to 10 minute routine. You could skip it out now, go right into the need to do stuff. Alrighty, so we're gonna start with a jump shrug. Okay, so I have 2 15s over there. You don't even really need dumbbells. You could just do a squat jump. Okay, squat jump is just hands on the hips. Okay, reactive. Okay, so you're feeling the ground and you're right back off again. The jump shrug, you can do it 2 ways. I'll use the 15s. This might be a little heavy, but we just want a little external load. When it comes to a plyometric, and we're jumping, I mean, you want to start with maybe like 10% of your body weight and eventually work up to maybe 30% of your body weight. It shouldn't be that heavy, because the heavier you go, the mechanics can really suffer. And if the mechanics aren't similar to what we're trying to express, then the utility there is just not advisable. So start with about 10% of your body weight, and then you can always move up. Okay, for me, this is kind of somewhere in between. Alrighty, so the jump shrug, you can do it 2 ways. You can do max power, reset completely. We're gonna do 5 reps, remember, each minute on a minute. Okay, so I would start the timer right before I started this exercise. Okay, so jump shrug with the little reset. We'll do 2 sets and I'll show you the difference. I'll start my timer this time. Here we go. So I press start, starting the workout. I'm going to jump and shrug, reset. Okay, so I'm trying to bring my shoulders to my ears. Okay? So we're focusing on exploding with a soft landing. That's it. Okay, and we call that triple extension. So extension through the ankles, the knees, and the hips. In any kind of locomotion, jumping, throwing, it's a really important mechanism, those 3 sections of our body, okay? When they all work together in a nice, succinct way, that's when we get maximum performance, okay? And underlying that is coordination and skill. That's why repetition is important in this, okay? Look at that, I'm at 52 seconds, 53. No, now I'm about to start the new set. I'll grab him, set 56. This time I'll do it reactive 5, okay? All right, so those 2 different types of jump shrug. Actually, I showed you 3 things. I showed you a squat jump, if you don't have weights, extra reactive, because it's just your body weight, the jump shrug, max power, soft landing, and then the reactive jump shrug, okay? I would say on that last one there, I'm afraid of the mic going somewhere, so I wasn't maybe as violent as I typically would be, but I think you get the drift. Okay, so we'll move on to the next exercise. That's our power move, and we always do it first. Why? We want to do it when we're fresh. If we did that kind of Olympic style lifting at the beginnings of it, at the end of a workout, you're going to be kind of sloppy. I don't think that's advisable, especially if we're just getting back into it. Next, I told you on the other day there, we really don't have that many options for rows, especially if you don't have a pull-up bar or squat rack or a TRX. I'll show you the TRX today, but if you don't have those things, you can do the rear elevated split row. You can also do just a split row here. Okay, you can do a bent over row where we're just kind of in this double leg stance with 2 weights. Okay, I prefer those because we're standing. You can do the traditional bent over row. I'll show you with a bench. I don't mind this if we're really trying to lift heavy, but generally if you don't do it right, it can teach you some bad habits. So this is the bent over row here traditionally. You might see at the gym. Okay, legs out, hand here, creating an opening and rowing. The problem is people don't create that opening. They kind of sit back into it, real close off here. Okay, we want to expose the body to gravity and create some stability. So I'm not a huge fan of this one initially. I think doing it standing, double row, split row, or rear elevated is the way to go. But I'll show you the inverted row if you happen to have some TRX straps in the garage, or they have them at the gym, or you can also use an Olympic bar and do an inverted Olympic bar row if you were at the gym and you had a squat rack or something like that. Okay? Doesn't really matter the height here, because you can adjust how difficult it is. Okay, I'm gonna walk it back, walk under it. Okay, I like going straight legs, so we get the full chain from the hamstrings, glutes, low back, row through. Just like our push-up, we want our elbows, we want that like 35-degree kind of arrow shape. You don't want to be way out here. Okay, keep it tight. Okay, and we're aiming for 5 good reps. And just like the push-up I showed you on day 1, the secret is creating stiffness in that whole posterior, so behind your body chain. So from the neck to the knees. The stiffer you can be there, the better you can apply a pull. Alrighty? Bang for buck, really good posterior chain exercise. Okay, as opposed to some of the other variations I just showed you. So if you have something like this, you can buy these straps, honestly, Amazon for probably $50 to $70. They've come down in price significantly. They're not official TRX, but decent build quality here. Alrighty? And you can do lots of other things with that too down the road, but I think for the inverted row, probably one of the better exercises you can do. Okay, I'll put that back. And again, you would do 3 sets of 5 to start. Eventually, we want to build that up. You'll see later in the program. We want to go maybe like 3 sets of 8, maybe 5 sets of 5, that kind of thing. Okay, so overall, this first couple weeks, we're just trying to increase the volume just slightly. Okay, so how much capacity you have to do some work. Just simple, basic work of the foundational movements, and then we can get fancy and start to integrate some other things. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to do the RDL. Okay, the Romanian deadlift. Okay, deadlifts get a bad rep, especially barbell deadlifts. I think people lift too heavy and they often do them wrong. I'm a big fan of there's need to do, nice to do, and what to do. Okay, we generally know what we need to do, but sometimes we pick exercises that are nice to do, but they're not need to do. Okay, so I think a barbell deadlift is a little low on the priority scale initially. You need to learn how to hinge, so swinging, and then using dumbbells, some free weight so that you can control your body before you get into a very fixed position. All right, and I'll try to give you some pointers here. I think what I'll do is I'll use a slightly lighter weight than I was planning so I can demonstrate a little better. But generally with this, you want to grab 2, fairly heavy weights. And I would say heavy is relative. It's excitingly heavy. Okay, so I have my dumbbells here. Okay, and there's no right or wrong way. There's just more advisable strategies. Okay, so ultimately, just like the hinge we did on day 1, the swing, I'm going to go a little narrower stance than I did there, shoulder width apart. What I'm doing is I'm opening the book, folding the book. My hips are going to go back. My neck is neutral, so I'm not looking up as I go down here. Okay, my knees are fairly stiff. I have a slight bend in my knee. That's why they call it the Romanian deadlift. It's a stiff leg, but there's still a little bit of a flex knee there. Okay, so I'm flexing the knee, I'm hinging. I feel a stretch in my hamstrings. I engage that stretch and I bring the whole hip forward. So hips back, stretch, engage it. Stiff midsection to protect the back. Okay, for me, I feel plenty of action in my hamstrings and glutes. Boom. And depending on your individual makeup, you might feel glutes more, you might feel hamstrings more. It depends on your chain on the back there. If you feel your low back, limit your range. Don't go down as far. Okay, keep it a little shorter. Brace your midsection. Okay, cue that midsection up. The abdomen and the low back, they do opposite things. The abdomen flexes, the low back extends and stabilizes, more importantly. It doesn't extend that much. And that's the problem. We put it into a position where it has to extend more than it needs to. Then we get into trouble. Okay? But slow it down also. Sometimes people don't feel this because they're doing something different with their torso. They're kind of flexing down like this. And And then look how far I can go when I'm flexing down. If I puff my chest, kind of push the booty back, right away, now I feel my hamstrings. I can't go down as far. Okay? But it's better to go lighter, slow it down, do it well. Start with 5 reps, 5 good reps. You can always scale up. Alrighty? That's the RDL. Pretty simple there. Okay? If you're a runner, the RDL or deadlift, that posterior chain activation, very good exercise down the road, and definitely a staple. If I were to prioritize it over the squat, I think the RDL or single leg RDL is pretty important. Okay, it recreates a lot of the forces and things like that in bulletproofing your running. Okay, but you got to start with the double leg before we go the single leg. Eventually the single leg is great, but you got to do both. Next, we're going to do another neat exercise here. We're going to do a split, okay, or half kneeling, we call this, overhead press. Alrighty, so if I was standing up, the overhead press is quite easy. Okay, I get to use my whole body to get some pressing going here. I can stiffen up my midsection, the legs are slightly in there. I'm not saying that's a bad exercise. We certainly will do some of those as well, because eventually we want to do a lot of our stuff standing up, especially if you're a runner or some sort of athlete that does things while we're upright. Okay, but we're going to make it a little more challenging, create a little bit of a stability problem. So we're going to go half kneeling. Okay, we're going to go in a front rack position. So my elbows pretty much forward. I don't want to sneak to the side like this. Okay, over time that tends to happen with some. Try to focus on that shape. So that's the front rack. It's one of the shoulder archetypes, really important. From here, I want to press straight up, or more importantly, try to open it up. See how I rotated a bit there? Back down. You can go hand on the hip. You can go hand out. So this 15 turns into a lot harder of a challenge, especially when I slow it like this. Very nice. Okay, we'll do the other side. And again, you're doing the each minute on a minute here. Okay, we'll split over, front rack, hand out for me. Nice neutral hip, overhead. Try to internally rotate if you can. Just 5. Back down. Alrighty? So the front rack, overhead press. Single arm, that's it. There's tons of variations we could do with overhead pressing, and we will do those, but I think that's a good one to start with. It's a little bit up the scale of stability requirements, so I think holistically it's a real nice place to get some value. Next, we're going to do a lateral lunge. Okay, you're probably wondering, where are the front lunges? They'll be coming, but the front lunge of all the lunges is probably the most difficult as far as its demands on your body. There's a lot of eccentric loading. So we want to build up the foundation before we start getting into that plane. Okay, and typically we're in the sagittal plane too much, so this direction. We're always doing everything here. Squatting, all that. We want to get out of the sagittal plane. We want to build that foundation. The pyramid's missing a corner. We want to fill that in a little bit so that we can put the gold leaf on top. Okay? So the lateral lunge is simple. We're going to go 8 and 8 here. Again, like I said in day one, you can do pretty high reps here. You could go up to 10, 12, whatever you want. I really wouldn't go more than that. But with body weight, you can definitely do more volume as long as the quality of movement's there, okay? Don't get sloppy just because you can do a lot and the load's not there. So I'm stepping, reaching, popping back. I'm pushing down through the ground, and I look really erect at the top here. I'm trying to create a nice shape, okay? Because I could be kind of sloppy and just sneak across like this. It's not what I'm trying to do. I want to go down, up, and over. Pretend there's almost something there and you got to step over it. Okay, that will really enhance the stab through the ground, okay? And then we do the other side. Okay, up and over. Okay, we want to try to enhance that downward force to the ground. Okay, I'm doing 8 and 8, up to 12 and 12, whatever you want to do here. Follow the program. I think I have 8 and 8. You take the minute, you go on the minute, and you're going again. Okay? We can try to go rep a second on that as well, but do it slower, do it right, and then we can add the flare after, okay? Last thing we're going to do, if you don't have access to a band, I mean, resistance bands are so cheap now. Again, you can get them from the dollar store. I'm going to be using what's called a power band, something like this, just a big circle. Alrighty, this is the lightest resistance they make, the company I got. I think it's like a 15-pound resistance, 15 to 30. You can use tubing, you can use anything you want. It doesn't have to be heavy, that's the cool thing. Okay, and what I've done is, I've attached it to my dumbbell rack over here. Should be secure. Okay, you can see I'm pulling on it here. We're gonna do a pal-off hold. Okay, and we're gonna add some circles to it. So a pal-off press, just like the ab rollout on day one, it's an anti-rotation exercise. Okay, especially running, it's a really rotational exercise. We're controlling for transverse forces to try to translate it into the sagittal plane. So we're trying to get out of translate like the helicopter propeller on the back of a helicopter. Not an aeronautical engineer, don't even know what those are called, but that's kind of the same principle of what we do when we run. Okay, that's what our arm swing's doing. It's controlling for rotation. So we can bulletproof that plane by doing an exercise like this. So I have this nice athletic stance. I have this handle here. You don't even have to use a handle. You can just grab the band. Bring it to my chest. I'm nice and square. I'm going to punch this out. And remember we talked about the moment arm in day one? The same principle applies here. Right here it doesn't feel that bad. As soon as I start to sneak this away from my midline, the moment arm increases and the forces get greater and greater and greater to the base here. Okay, the proximal part of my body. Alrighty, so I feel resistance. I feel like I'm resisting the rotation. My body wants to go like this. I'm resisting it. We can spice it up. So you could just do this, 5-second holds if you want, but I like to add a little circle from the shoulder girdle. You can go 3 to 5, and then go the other way. Okay, so you feel this in the midsection quite a bit, really deep. Okay, a lot of the postural muscles in your body are quite deep. Some of those are rotators, but you'll feel that really deep in the midsection, okay? Next, you do one side, you flip around to the other side. I'm not going to turn my back to you, and you would do that side, okay? So that's how when we talk about core training, it's not really the superficial muscles, it's the whole, every layer all the way down. And we have to be diverse. Our core is very diverse. It can do a lot of things. It can absorb, it can create, it can stabilize. So we need to train it that way. That's why just doing some basic crunches, it's not very specific. It doesn't really transfer to much. It might give you a 6-pack or something like that with diet and all these other things, but for training for performance, there's more effective exercises just like that one I just showed you. Okay, so that's day 2. I'll have some more videos with some progressions and maybe some new exercises, but at the end of the day, it's better to keep it simple. Simple progression, so just add some volume over the next couple of weeks, add a set, add some reps, get better at the skill. That's the goal for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Once you establish that foundation of movement, we can layer on top of it and do some fancy and cool things that we start to feel like, hey, I'm expressing here. Okay, that's it. Take care.